Okay. Alright. We are now in Job 32, chapter 32. Job has finished his defense of himself. Okay, so we've had this long circular series of arguments, which has now ended. We started off with Job issuing his opening lament in Job chapter 3, and that caused Eliphaz to respond, and then Job responded to Eliphaz, and then Bildad responded to Job, and then Job responded to Bildad, and then Zophar responded to Job. We did that 3 times. And after those 3 guys got done speaking, they all were trying to coerce or pressure or convince Job to repent of some hidden sin that they were convinced he must have committed, in order, which is what brought this judgment and punishment on him. And Job kept saying, no, I'm not going to do that because I haven't committed any. There are no hidden sins. I've not done anything like that. So that basically continued on. And then after they got done speaking, they could not get Job to admit his guilt, whatever guilt. They didn't have anything that they knew about. They couldn't say what it was that Job had done because he hadn't done anything. They just figured he had to have done something. So they didn't end up getting a confession out of him. And so then Job kind of went on the defensive and had several chapters where he talked about himself and about just, life in general. He talked about the fate of the wicked. He talked about how he used to be, where he used to be in life, and then now where he is. And he said that if I have done anything that to deserve bringing about this punishment and judgment, then, if I've done anything wicked or immoral, then let me be punished, basically, he said. And that was it. And then Job ran out of things to say. So his friends ran out of things to say, and now Job was out of things to say. But we're not done with the book yet. We're only in Job 32. We've got several more chapters left to go. Right now, we're going to have somebody else talk. Now, this is a guy, this section here bridges the gap between the rest of the book, which we finished reading, and the end of the book, which is when God comes along and speaks. We have another speaker here who has not been mentioned before, kind of a surprise character coming out of the shadows, that's going to start turning the discussion, turning the conversation in a different direction. He does not solve the issue. This guy, Elihu, does not settle the issue. Really, in all honesty, the issue never gets settled. The issue that Job and his friends are talking about really never gets settled, technically, in the sense of they get an answer to their questions. But Elihu is here now to start turning our conversation in a different direction. Come on, don't do that. Elihu is here to start turning our conversation in a different direction. Now, if Elihu is a man, and he has the same limitations, I believe, that the other guys did, he also doesn't know. Now, if there's any one character in this book who is a possible author of the original story of Job, it's probably Elihu. I don't think Job wrote down the book. The book that we have now that we call the Book of Job probably was not actually written by Job, even in its original form. If there's any one character that appears in this book that is likely responsible for first writing it down, it's probably Elihu. I don't even know if that's the case. I don't know if he did. No one can prove that. No one can establish that. No one can say for sure. But if any of these guys did, he is probably the most likely person to have done so. And he's not right either, in the sense that he also does not have access to the stuff that we, the readers, know about from Job 1 and 2. So he doesn't know exactly why Job is going through this either. He doesn't know about the wager, but he is going to start turning our conversation in a different direction. And he is going to he's going to bridge the gap between what Job and the others are talking about and what God will say at the end of the book. Elihu's words can be confusing. Over the years, people have viewed him as everything from a man of God to a demon in disguise. Okay, that's how confusing his section can be. And of course, the smart people will tell you that it wasn't native to the original book and it was added later. They say this mainly because Elihu isn't mentioned before this or after even. He just kind of comes and goes. But if you look at the narrative structure of the book as a whole, it's pretty obvious that this section here was always part of the narrative of Job, because it's what gets us from the conversation Job has with his buddies to God. We can't really get through the book of Job without this section here about Elihu speaking. So some of what he's going to say is very similar to what Job has said, or what the three other characters have said. He's going to say some of the same thing. They're not, they didn't get everything completely wrong. Their overall stance was wrong, and their assumption was mistaken. All of those guys, all four of those guys, are operating from the same mistaken assumption. Basically, they believed in a version of the prosperity gospel that God materially rewards and blesses the righteous in this life and punishes and condemns the wicked in this life. Now, Elihu doesn't believe that. Elihu is going to give us another way of thinking about it that doesn't necessarily come down to, well, the righteous get rewarded and the wicked get punished. So Elihu is going to turn our conversation away from that. But some of what he says is similar to what we've already heard, and some of what he says is very similar to what God will say when he comes into the picture after Elihu is done speaking. So we do need this section here, and I do believe that Elihu's section was native to the book, was part of the book in the beginning. I think the fact that he isn't mentioned before or after is just to kind of like Melchizedek in Genesis, to demonstrate that he just kind of comes onto the scene, speaks his part, and then leaves. So Job chapter 32. So these three men stopped answering Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. He was self-righteous. He had justified himself. He was confident in his own righteousness. And there was nothing these guys could do to get him to say otherwise. But Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, of the family of Ram, became very angry with Job for justifying himself rather than God. He was also angry with the three friends, because they had found no way to refute Job, and yet had condemned him. He wasn't necessarily upset that they had condemned Job, because he was angry with Job too. He was angry with these friends for not being able to successfully argue Job and still condemning him. They condemned him without justification, in the sense that they couldn't find any legitimate grounds to condemn him. Now Elihu had waited before speaking to Job, because the other men were older than he. Remember, and we even talked about this with some of our previous speeches, we're talking about a culture where the younger are supposed to show respect and deference to the older. And Elihu is doing that. I don't know how much younger he is than them. But however much younger he is than them, it's enough to make him patiently wait his turn until they get done speaking. But when he saw the three men had nothing more to say, so the argument has run its course, the discussion is over, his anger was aroused. Excuse me, I can drink. So Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, said, I am young in years, and you are old. That is why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I should know. Now he may be a bit hot-headed too, being young. He's young and full of passion. He patiently waited for the older men to get done speaking. But now he is speaking. So some of his things might be said, just why? Why must you do these things? Why must you constantly get into stuff? Just why? Why? Just always, every time. Yesterday she didn't. Yesterday she actually didn't. It's so annoying. So annoying. That is why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak, advanced years should teach wisdom. But it is in the spirit in a man, or the spirit, maybe the capital letter spirit, the breath of the Almighty that gives him understanding. So we are animated by the breath of the Almighty, and that gives us understanding. It is not only the old who are wise. Excuse me. It is not only the old who are wise, not only the aged who understand what is right. Therefore, I say, listen to me. I too will tell you what I know. I waited while you spoke. I listened to your reasoning. While you were searching for words, I gave you my full attention. But not one of you has proved Job wrong. None of you has answered his arguments. Do not say, we have found wisdom. Let God refute him, not man. But Job has not marshaled his words against me, and I will not answer him with your arguments. So Elihu is going to introduce a new point of view into the discussion. He is going to introduce a new frame of reference, a new way of looking at things. They are dismayed and have no more to say. Words have failed them. Must I wait, now that they are silent, now that they stand there with no reply? I too will have my say. I too will tell what I know. For I am full of words, and the spirit within me compels me. Inside, I am like bottled up wine, like new wineskins ready to burst. So he's got to say this. This has been welling up in him now since the beginning of this conversation, and he's got to release it. He's got to let forth these words that have been piling up inside him. I must speak and find relief. I must open my lips and reply. I will show partiality to no one, nor will I flatter any man. For if I were skilled in flattery, my Maker would soon take me away. So he's not going to necessarily choose one side or the other to favor. And like I said, we're going to find elements of all of their discussions before somewhere in his speech here. So he's going to take some out of everything that the other characters have said. But now, Job, listen to my words. Pay attention to everything I say. I am about to open my mouth. My words, he has actually opened his mouth. He's giving us a preamble here, isn't he? My words are on the tip of my tongue. My words come from an upright heart. My lips sincerely speak what I know. So he may be young, he may be impetuous, he may be hot-headed, but he is sincere. He believes very sincerely that what he's saying is right. Does that mean he is right? Not necessarily. But it does mean that he is passionate about speaking what he feels he has to say. The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gave me life, or gives me life. Answer me then, if you can. Prepare yourself and confront me. I am just like you before God. So he's a man just like Job and the other three guys. I too have been taken from clay. No fear of me should alarm you, nor should my hand be heavy upon you. If you can't handle Elihu, Job, there's no way you can handle God. You've been talking about wanting to see God face to face, wanting to have your day in court with him. But Elihu is just a man like you, made from dust and clay, and going back to dust and clay, just like you are. If you can't handle what Elihu's got to say to you, then you're not going to be able to handle God. But you have said in my hearing, I've heard these very words, I am pure and without sin, is what Job was saying. I am pure and without sin. I am clean and free from guilt. Yet God has found fault with me. He considers me his enemy. He fastens my feet in shackles and keeps close watch on all my paths. That's what Job has said, according to Elihu, of course. There's a cat back there. That's a lunar cat. But I tell you, in this you are not right. For God is greater than man. So he's going to finally start talking about his stance here. He's given us a chapter and a half of an opening statement, a preamble. Now he's actually going to get to the meat of his argument. Why do you complain to him when he answers none of man's words? But God does speak, now in one way, now in another, though man may not perceive it. So God does speak to you, Job, even if he's not literally talking to you in front of your face. He communicates with you. He might even be communicating with you in the act of your suffering, in a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on men as they slumber on their beds. Man, my throat is kind of dry today. He may speak in their ears and terrify them with warnings, to turn man from wrongdoing and keep him from pride, to preserve his soul from the pit, his life from perishing by the sword. I don't think God speaks to us in dreams or visions today, like he apparently did pretty regularly back then. But do you ever have that sense? Do you ever lie in bed at night? I'm a single man, so I go to bed alone. But whether you go to bed alone or with a spouse or another loved one of some kind, have you ever had that sense at night where thoughts just kind of tumble into your head as you're lying there trying to go to sleep? I've had that happen many times. I never had God come to me in a dream or a vision directly and give me a message, but I have had plenty of times. I'm 40 years old, and in my 40 years, I've had plenty of times, many times, where at night when I'm lying in the dark, waiting, trying to let my body relax and go to sleep, where I've had a thought in my head about something that I've been doing or something that I need to do or something I need to stop doing or something along those lines. Maybe that's God. Maybe that's God putting that thought in my mind. Maybe when that happens to you, that's God putting a thought in your ear. I don't know if he comes to you in dreams or visions, like Elihu suggests here. I think he does still come to us at night. Or a man may be chastened on a bed of pain, with constant distress in his bones, so that his very being finds food repulsive, and his soul loathes the choicest meal. His flesh wastes away to nothing, and his bones, what's hidden, stick out. His soul draws near to the pit, and his life to the messengers of death. You ever just get that feeling that something's not right? You can't really see her from here. She's scratching on the scratching post that I have over there. Actually, I don't know what they're doing. Oh well, I'll let them at it. I don't think they're doing anything harmful to it. If they are, oh well. Yet, if there is an angel on his side as a mediator, and we're back to that mediator idea now, 1 out of 1,000, to tell a man what is right for him, to be gracious to him and say, spare him from going down to the pit. I have found a ransom for him. Hang on, there we go. I have found a ransom for him. Then his flesh is renewed like a child's. Instead of wasting away, it's fresh and smooth and clean. It is restored as in the days of his youth. He prays to God and finds favor with him. He sees God's face and shouts for joy. He is restored by God to his righteous state. Then he comes to men and says, I sinned, and I perverted what was right, but I did not get what I deserved. He redeemed my soul from going down to the pit, and I will live to enjoy the light. God does all these things to a man, twice, even 3 times, to turn back his soul from the pit, that the light of life may shine on him. Pay attention, Job, and listen to me. Be silent, and I will speak. If you have anything to say, answer me. Speak up, for I want you to be cleared. But if not, then listen to me. Be silent, and I will teach you wisdom. So he's giving Job an opportunity to respond here. Job does not. The next verse says, then Elihu said. So Job does not speak up here at this point. But he's giving him an opportunity. Elihu's not done speaking. He still has several more chapters to talk. But his first statement is that The suffering and discipline that Job is experiencing may not have anything to do with his righteousness or his sin. God may be simply instructing him. He may be warning him of going down a dark path, or in general just teaching him a lesson. So that already kind of changes our perspective from where we were before, where we viewed this punishment, we viewed this ordeal that Job was experiencing strictly as a punishment. It had to be a punishment. And Elihu is saying maybe it wasn't a punishment. Maybe it isn't necessarily being a retribution for some sin that Job has committed. Maybe it's God is warning him about something or instructing him in some other manner. That's the first part of Elihu's speech.